She walked into my office with her head high, but I could see her hands shaking. I don't know why I noticed that. Maybe because everyone else who came through that door lately had been so confident, so polished, so perfect on paper. But this woman, her resume had more gaps than a broken fence, and her last job ended 3 years ago. 3 years. In this industry, that might as well be a lifetime. "Mr. Harrison," she said quietly, her voice steady even though her fingers trembled against the strap of her worn leather purse. "Thank you for seeing me. I should have ended it right there. I had 20 other candidates. Younger. Sharper. Hungrier. People who hadn't disappeared from the workforce for reasons I could only guess at. But something in her eyes stopped me. It wasn't desperation. I'd seen that before, people who would say anything, promise anything, just to get a paycheck. No, this was something else. Something that looked like quiet dignity, like she knew the odds were against her, but she'd shown up anyway. "Sit down, Ms. Carter," I heard myself say, and with those 3 words, everything in my carefully controlled life began to change. Before we continue, if this is your first time watching one of our videos, we'd love for you to hit that subscribe button and comment where you are watching from. Your support means the world to us, and it helps us bring you even more powerful stories. Her name was Elizabeth Carter, though she told me later that most people called her Lizzie. She was 42 years old, which shouldn't have mattered, but somehow it did to every other company she'd walked into over the past 6 months. I found that out not from her, but from the way she looked at me when I asked about her employment gap. "I was caring for my mother," she said simply. "She had Alzheimer's. There was no one else. No excuses. No elaborate explanations. Just the truth, offered like a small, fragile gift." I looked down at her resume again. Before the gap, she'd been exceptional. Awards. Promotions. Glowing references from a company that had since been bought out and dismantled. She'd been someone once. Someone important. And then she'd chosen her mother over her career. The business part of my brain, the part that had built Harrison and Associates from nothing into one of the most respected consulting firms in the city, that part told me to thank her for her time and move on. But there was another part, a quieter part, the part that remembered what it felt like to make impossible choices, to wonder if you'd done the right thing, to lie awake at night and add up everything you'd lost. "The position is junior level," I said, watching her face carefully. "You'd be starting over, essentially. It's probably beneath your experience." "I understand," she said. And then, so softly I almost missed it, "I'm just grateful for the chance." I hired her that afternoon. My business partner, David, thought I'd lost my mind. "She's been out of the game for 3 years, James," he said, standing in my office doorway with his arms crossed. 3 years. Do you know how much has changed? The software alone. "She'll learn," I said. "We have candidates half her age who already know the systems." "Then we'll teach her." David stared at me like I'd grown a second head. We'd been friends since college, built this company together through long nights and near bankruptcy, and the kind of stress that ends marriages, which it had for both of us. He knew me well enough to know I didn't make emotional decisions. Except I just had. "What's really going on here?" he asked quietly. I didn't have an answer. Not one I could put into words. So I just shook my head and turned back to my computer, and eventually David left, still looking confused. The truth was, I didn't understand it myself. Elizabeth Lizzie started the following Monday. I watched her from my office that first morning. She arrived 30 minutes early, carrying a lunch she'd packed in a plain brown bag. She set up her desk with careful precision. A small plant, a framed photo I couldn't quite see, a coffee mug that looked like it had been washed 1,000 times. She didn't talk much to the other employees, but she listened. I noticed that. When someone explained a procedure, she gave them her complete attention, her eyes focused, her hands still. Like every word mattered. By the end of the first week, I realized something strange. The office felt different when she was in it. Not louder, not more energetic, just warmer somehow, like someone had opened a window and let in air that had been missing. Sarah, our office manager, mentioned it first. "There's something about her," Sarah said, stopping by my office on Friday afternoon. "Elizabeth. She's just, I don't know, kind. Really kind. Do you know she stayed late on Wednesday to help Marcus figure out the new database? On her 3rd day. I hadn't known that. She asks about people," Sarah continued. "Really asks. Like she cares about the answer. When's the last time anyone here did that?" I thought about it. Honestly thought about it. I couldn't remember. We were a good company. Professional. Respectful. We had decent benefits and regular team-building events and all the things the HR manuals recommended. But when had kindness become so rare that we noticed it like something unusual? 3 weeks after Lizzie started, we landed the Meridian account. It was huge. The kind of contract that could define the next 5 years of the company. The kind that made my business partner grin like we were 25 again, starting out with nothing but ambition and student debt. It was also the kind that required our best people. We had a team meeting to discuss assignments. David ran through the list of senior consultants, matching skills to project needs with the efficiency of a chess master. And for the community outreach component, he said, I'm thinking we put Jenkins on it. He did well with the Morrison project last year. I looked at the project outline in front of me. Community outreach, building relationships with local stakeholders, listening to concerns, creating genuine connections. No, I heard myself say. Everyone looked up. Not Jenkins, I continued. Elizabeth Carter. The conference room went silent. James, David said carefully. She's been here less than a month. I know. This is our biggest account in 3 years. I know. She's junior level. I know what she is, David. I kept my voice even. Professional. But firm. And I know what this component needs. It needs someone who actually listens. Someone people trust instinctively. Someone who makes them feel like they matter. Jenkins is perfectly capable. Jenkins is capable of running a meeting and checking boxes, I interrupted. This needs more than that. You've seen the demographics. We're working with community centers, schools, neighborhood associations. People who've been talked at by consultants their whole lives. They need someone real. David sat back in his chair, studying me with that look I'd come to know over 20 years of friendship. The look that said he was trying to figure out what I wasn't saying. You're really willing to bet the community component on someone with a month's experience? He asked quietly. I thought about Lizzie staying late to help Marcus. About the way Sarah had described her, really kind. About the trembling hands and the steady voice and the quiet dignity. Yes, I said. I am. I called Lizzie into my office that afternoon. She knocked softly, waiting for permission even though the door was open. Always so careful. Always so aware of taking up space. You wanted to see me, Mr. Harrison? James, I said. Please. Call me James. She nodded but didn't use my name. Just stood there, waiting, her hands folded in front of her. I'm putting you on the Meridian account, I told her. Community outreach lead. I watched the color drain from her face. Mr. Harrison, James, I've only been here 3 weeks and 4 days, I said. I know. This is your biggest account. It is. Shouldn't someone with more experience? Lizzie. I stood up, walked around my desk, leaned against it, so we were closer to the same level. I'm not asking you to do this because there's no one else. I'm asking you because you're the right person for it. She looked down at her hands. I could see her processing, weighing, probably listing all the reasons this was a mistake. What if I fail? She whispered. It was such an honest question. Such a human question. When was the last time anyone in this office had asked me something that real? What if you don't? I said. She looked up then, and our eyes met, and for just a moment I saw past all her careful composure. I saw fear, yes, but also hope. The kind of hope that's been bruised so many times it barely dares to exist anymore. I won't let you down, she said quietly. I know, I said, and I meant it. The Meridian project kicked off on a gray Tuesday morning in March. I insisted on going to the first community meeting with Lizzie. Not to supervise, at least that's what I told myself, but to support. To be there if she needed backup. The meeting was in an elementary school gymnasium that smelled like floor wax and old basketballs. Folding chairs arranged in a circle. Coffee in a large thermos that had seen better days. About 20 people from the neighborhood, most of them looking skeptical. They'd been through this before, their faces said. Consultants with promises and PowerPoint presentations. Nothing ever changed. Lizzie stood up to introduce herself, and I held my breath. Hi, she said simply. My name is Elizabeth Carter. I'm here to listen. That was it. No corporate speech. No agenda. Just those 7 words. And then she sat down. One of the older women in the group, Mrs. Patterson, I'd learn later, raised an eyebrow. That's it? You're not going to tell us about your big plans? I don't have any plans yet, Lizzie said honestly. I can't make plans until I understand what you need. What you dream about for this community. What's worked before and what hasn't. She paused. So I'm here to listen. Really listen. For as long as you're willing to talk. I watched something shift in the room. It was subtle, like ice beginning to thaw. Mrs. Patterson spoke first. Then Mr. Chun, who ran the community garden. Then Maria, a young mother worried about the playground equipment. Then others, their voices overlapping, years of frustration and hope pouring out. And Lizzie listened. I mean really listened. Not the corporate listening, where you're already formulating your response. Not the listening where you're checking your watch. She listened like every word was a treasure. She took notes by hand in a simple notebook. She asked questions that showed she'd heard not just what they said, but what they meant. 2 hours later, when the meeting finally ended, Mrs. Patterson walked up to Lizzie. "You're different from the others," she said. "How so?" Lizzie asked. "You look at us like we're people," Mrs. Patterson said simply. "Not problems to solve. People." I saw Lizzie's eyes glisten, just for a moment, before she smiled and squeezed the older woman's hand. Driving back to the office, Lizzie was quiet. "You did well," I said. "I didn't do anything," she replied. "I just listened." "Exactly." She turned to look at me then, and I kept my eyes on the road because her gaze felt too intense, too knowing. "Why did you really give me this assignment?" she asked softly. It was a fair question. I'd been asking myself the same thing. "Because," I said slowly, choosing my words carefully, "I've spent 20 years in this business. Building the company, winning accounts, making money. And somewhere along the way, I forgot that behind every project there are people. Real people with real lives." I paused. "You haven't forgotten that. Maybe because you couldn't afford to. Because I was out of the game for 3 years," she said. "It wasn't bitter. Just factual. Because you spent 3 years caring for someone who needed you," I corrected. "That doesn't make you less qualified, Lizzie. It makes you more human. And that's what this project needs." She was quiet for a long moment. "My mother died thinking I'd wasted my life," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. She had moments of clarity near the end. And in one of them, she cried because I'd given up my career for her. She said I should have put her in a home. Should have chosen myself. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. "But you didn't," I said. "No, I didn't." She looked out the window. And I've wondered every day since if she was right. If I made the wrong choice. If I sacrificed too much. "Do you regret it?" I asked. "No," she said immediately. Then softer. "But I wonder if I'm allowed to have anything else now. If I used up my one chance." I pulled into the parking garage, put the car in park, but didn't turn off the engine. Just sat there, staring straight ahead. "My daughter," I said, and it surprised me how hard it was to get the words out. "Emma. She's 16 now. Lives with her mother in Portland." "I didn't know you had a daughter," Lizzie said gently. "Most people here don't." I forced myself to continue. "When my marriage ended, I had a choice. Fight for custody, uproot Emma from her school and friends, bring her here where I worked 70-hour weeks. Or let her stay with her mother, in a stable home, with a parent who could actually be there." I swallowed hard. I chose the company. Told myself it was for her, that I was building something, making money for her future. But the truth is, I chose the easier path. The one that didn't require me to change. "James." "She barely knows me now," I said. "We talk once a week, maybe. Awkward conversations where I ask about school, and she gives me one-word answers. I've missed everything. First boyfriend. First heartbreak. School plays. Soccer games. Everything." I finally looked at Lizzie. "You didn't waste your life. You lived it. You were there. And maybe your mother's last words were about regret, but Lizzie, she wasn't alone. She died knowing she was loved. That she mattered enough for you to stay." Tears were streaming down Lizzie's face now. "I don't know if Emma will ever forgive me," I continued. "I don't know if there's enough time left to build something real with her. But what I do know is this: you didn't use up your one chance. You're still here. Still standing. And you have something most people in that office will never have. You know what actually matters." Something changed between Lizzie and me after that day. Not dramatically. We didn't suddenly become best friends or confidants. But there was an understanding now. A recognition that we'd both made choices that had cost us. That we were both carrying quiet regrets. We started having coffee together on Wednesday mornings. It began accidentally. We both arrived early and ended up in the break room at the same time. She made coffee the old-fashioned way, with a French press she'd brought from home, and the smell was so much better than the office machine that I commented on it. "Would you like some?" she'd asked. And somehow that turned into a weekly ritual. We didn't talk about work much during those early morning sessions. Mostly we talked about small things. Books we'd read, news articles, the weather. But occasionally, in the quiet moments between words, we talked about bigger things. She told me about her mother's garden, how it had been full of roses, how Lizzie still couldn't look at roses without crying. I told her about Emma's 8th birthday party, how I'd missed it for a business trip I probably could have rescheduled, how I'd tried to make up for it with an expensive gift that she'd thanked me for politely and never mentioned again. "It's not too late," Lizzie said one morning, wrapping her hands around her coffee mug. "With Emma. She's 16, I said. Practically an adult." "Exactly. Old enough to have a real conversation. Old enough to understand that parents are just people who make mistakes." She looked at me over the rim of her mug. "Old enough to choose whether to forgive you. What if she chooses not to?" "Then at least you tried," Lizzie said simply. "At least she'll know you cared enough to try." The Meridian project was going better than anyone had expected. Lizzie had won over the community in a way that Jenkins never could have. She'd organized volunteers to renovate the playground. She'd connected local businesses with the community center for job training programs. She'd somehow convinced a retired teacher to start a free tutoring program in the school library. But more than that, she'd made people feel heard. David pulled me aside one afternoon, looking almost sheepish. "I was wrong," he said. "About Elizabeth." "Yes," I agreed. "You were. She's..." He searched for the word. "She's special. The Meridian people love her. They trust her. And James," he paused, "the team here loves her too. She's changed the whole atmosphere of the office." I'd noticed. People smiled more, took actual lunch breaks together, asked each other about their weekends, and seemed to genuinely care about the answers. "I know," I said. David studied me with that searching look again. "You're different too," he said quietly. "Since she got here." "Am I? You leave at 6 now instead of 9. You seem, I don't know, less tense. Like you remember there's a world outside these walls." I didn't know what to say to that. "Just be careful," David said, his voice gentle now. "Friend to friend, not business partner to business partner." "Careful of what?" "Of forgetting why you hired her. She needed a second chance. A job. Don't make it complicated." He left before I could respond. But his words stayed with me. Was I making it complicated? I thought about our Wednesday morning coffees. About the way I'd started looking forward to them. About how the office felt empty on the days Lizzie was out at site visits. I thought about how she'd looked at the last community meeting, kneeling down to talk to a little girl about the new swings, her whole face lit up with genuine joy. I thought about my ex-wife, Catherine, and how different she was from Lizzie. Catherine had been ambitious, sharp, brilliant in her own career. We'd been a power couple, everyone said. Two people building empires. Until we'd looked up one day and realized we were strangers living in the same house. Lizzie wasn't like that. Lizzie was soft where Catherine had been hard. Present where Catherine had been distracted. Kind where Catherine had been efficient. And yes, maybe David was right to warn me. Because I was starting to feel things I had no business feeling for an employee who'd been here barely 2 months. I met Lizzie's children by accident. It was a Saturday, and I'd come into the office to catch up on paperwork. I was surprised to see her car in the lot. We'd talked about taking weekends off, about having boundaries. When I walked into the office, I found her at her desk with 2 children. A boy, maybe 12, working on homework with intense concentration, and a girl, younger, maybe 8, drawing pictures with colored pencils. Lizzie looked up when she heard me, and I saw embarrassment flash across her face. "James, Mr. Harrison, I'm sorry. The babysitter canceled, and I had to finish the Meridian report." "It's fine," I said quickly. Then to the children, "Hi. I'm James." The boy looked up and assessed me with serious eyes. "I'm Michael," he said. "And that's Sophie." Sophie gave me a shy wave without stopping her drawing. "What are you working on?" I asked Michael, moving closer. "Algebra," he said with a grimace. "I hate algebra." "I used to hate it too," I said. Until someone showed me it was just solving puzzles. "Do you like puzzles?" Michael considered this. "Sometimes. Want me to show you a trick?" For the next 20 minutes, I sat with Michael and walked him through his homework while Lizzie worked and Sophie drew. It felt strange and natural all at once, like something I should have been doing all along, but with different children. When Michael finally got it, his whole face lit up. "Oh, that actually makes sense." "See," I said, "just puzzles." Sophie had abandoned her drawing and was watching us now. "Are you Mom's boss?" she asked. I suppose I am, I said. Are you nice to her? Her voice was serious. Protective. I try to be, I said honestly. Good, Sophie said firmly. Because Mom works really hard and sometimes people aren't nice to her because we don't have a dad. The words hung in the air like something fragile and sharp at the same time. Sophie, Lizzie said, her voice strained. It's okay, I said quickly. Then to Sophie, your mom is very good at her job. And very good at being a mom, I think. You're lucky to have her. I know, Sophie said simply, and went back to her drawing. Later, after Lizzie had finished her report and the kids were packing up to leave, I walked them to the car. I'm sorry about that, Lizzie said quietly while the children were buckling in. About Sophie. She's very direct. Don't apologize, I said. She's protecting you. That's beautiful. Lizzie's eyes filled with tears, and she blinked them back quickly. Their father left when Sophie was 2. Said he didn't sign up for this. For real life and responsibilities and... She stopped, shook her head. I'm sorry. You don't need to hear this. Lizzie. I waited until she looked at me. I want to hear it. If you want to tell me. She took a shaky breath. It's been just us for 6 years. And it's been hard. So hard. Finding childcare. Affording childcare. Trying to build a career while being everything they need. Every job interview, I could see it in their eyes. Single mother, 2 kids, probably unreliable. Nobody wanted the risk. She looked at me then, really looked at me. Until you. You were worth the risk, I said. Was I? She smiled, but it was sad. Or were you just kind? Maybe both, I admitted. Sophie knocked on the window then, pointing at her drawing. Lizzie opened the door and Sophie handed it to me. This is for you, Sophie said. For helping Michael with math. I looked at the drawing. It was a picture of 4 stick figures. Too big, too small. They were holding hands and smiling. Above them, she'd written in careful letters, family. My throat went tight. Thank you, Sophie, I managed. I'll keep this. She beamed at me, and Lizzie quickly wiped at her eyes before getting in the car. I stood in the parking lot long after they'd driven away, holding that drawing, and thought about Emma. About all the drawings she'd made that I'd probably never seen. All the homework I'd never helped with. All the moments I'd traded for meetings that didn't matter half as much as I'd told myself they did. I pulled out my phone and did something I should have done years ago. I called my daughter. Emma answered on the 4th ring. Dad. Her voice was surprised. We never called on Saturdays. Hi, sweetheart, I said, and my voice cracked on the word. Is everything okay? That's what we'd become. A relationship where a phone call outside the scheduled time meant emergency. Everything's fine, I said. I wanted to call. To talk. Really talk. Silence on the other end. I could imagine her face, Catherine's eyes, my stubborn chin, that expression of careful guarding that broke my heart. Okay, she said finally. Cautiously. I've been a terrible father, I said, and heard her sharp intake of breath. No, let me finish. I know we usually dance around this. I know I usually ask about school, and you give short answers, and we both pretend everything's fine. But it's not fine, Emma. And I need you to know that I know that. More silence. But she hadn't hung up. I made choices, I continued. Choices that I told myself were for you, but really they were for me. Because work was easier than being present. Than showing up and maybe failing at being what you needed. I sat down on the parking lot curb, not caring about my expensive suit. And I can't get those years back. I can't go to your 3rd grade play or teach you to ride a bike or any of the things I should have been there for. Dad, her voice was thick now. But I'm here now, I said. If you'll let me be. Not as the guy who calls once a week and sends checks. As your father. Really your father. I know I have to earn that. I know it might take years. But Emma, I want to try. If you're willing to let me. I heard her crying now, soft sounds that made my chest ache. I've been so angry at you, she whispered. For so long. I know. And Mom told me I should let it go, that you were doing your best, but I wanted you there. At my games. My concerts. I wanted you to know me. I want to know you, I said. Tell me. Tell me everything. I have time. All the time you need. And she did. We talked for 2 hours. About her friends and her fears and the boy she liked and the college she wanted to go to and how scared she was about growing up. About how she'd learned to braid hair from YouTube because I wasn't there to teach her. About how she still had the teddy bear I'd sent for her 8th birthday and slept with it sometimes when she was sad. By the time we hung up, My face was wet with tears and my heart felt cracked open in a way it hadn't been in years. But it also felt like maybe, just maybe, something was starting to heal. Monday morning, I got to the office before anyone else. I made coffee the regular way from the office machine and sat at my desk watching the sun come up over the city. David found me there at 7:30. "You're here early," he said. "Usually you're the last one in lately." "Couldn't sleep," I said. "Good weekend?" "Actually," I said, "yes. I talked to Emma. Really talked. For the first time in, I don't know, years." David's expression softened. "Yeah. We're gonna try," I said. "She's coming here next month for a visit. Spring break. And I'm actually going to take the time off. Show her the city. Introduce her to," I paused, "to my life here." "That's great, James. Really great." I looked at my oldest friend. "You were right, you know. About Lizzie changing things. About me being different." I took a breath. She reminded me what matters. Not by lecturing or judging. Just by being herself. By making different choices than I did and showing me that there's another way to live. "You care about her," David said. It wasn't a question. "Yes," I admitted. "I do." "Does she know?" "I don't think so. And I'm not sure." I shook my head. "She's my employee. She needs this job. I can't put her in a position where she feels pressured or—" "James." David sat down across from me. "I've known you for 20 years, and I've never seen you look at anyone the way you look at her. Not even Catherine. It's complicated." "It always is," David said. "But maybe that's not a reason to run from it. Maybe it's a reason to be careful with it. To respect it, but not to pretend it doesn't exist." I thought about Lizzie's smile. About Wednesday morning coffees. About how she listened like every word mattered. About Sophie's drawing, still on my desk at home, that simple picture of family. "What if I mess it up?" I asked quietly. "What if you don't?" David said, echoing my own words to Lizzie weeks ago. The Meridian Project wrapped up at the end of April. There was a celebration at the community center. The people had insisted on it. Homemade food, music, kids running around. Mrs. Patterson made a speech about how this was the first time anyone had actually listened to them. How things had changed not because of fancy consultants with big plans, but because of one woman who'd cared enough to see them as people. Lizzie stood there blushing, deflecting praise, insisting it was a team effort. But everyone knew the truth. She'd done this. She'd built bridges where there had been walls. She'd created community where there had been suspicion. And I was so proud of her I could barely breathe. After the speeches, after the food, I found her standing outside in the spring evening, watching Michael and Sophie play with the other neighborhood kids on the new playground equipment. "You did good," I said, coming to stand beside her. "We did good," she corrected. "This was a team project." "Lizzie." I waited until she looked at me. "Take the compliment. You earned it." She smiled that soft smile that did things to my chest. "Okay. Thank you." We stood in comfortable silence, watching the children. The laughter and shouts of kids being kids. "Emma's coming to visit next month," I said. Lizzie's face lit up. "James, that's wonderful." "I'm terrified," I admitted. "Good," she said. "That means you care. That means it matters. What if I don't know how to talk to her? What if we run out of things to say?" Lizzie turned to face me fully. "Then you sit in the silence together. You watch a movie. You take a walk. You make pancakes. You don't have to fill every moment with words, James. You just have to be present." "Is that how you do it?" I asked. "With Michael and Sophie?" "I try," she said. "Some days I succeed. Some days I fail. But they know I'm there. They know they matter more than anything else." She looked back at her children. "That's all any of us really want, isn't it? To matter to someone." My hand moved without conscious thought, reaching for hers. She startled, looked down at our hands, then up at my face. "You matter," I said quietly. "To me. More than I probably should admit." "James." "I'm not asking for anything," I said quickly. "I know this is complicated. I know I'm your boss and you need this job, and I would never put you in a position where you felt pressured. I needed you to know that you matter." Her eyes were shining with tears. "You matter to me too," she whispered. "So much. And it scares me." "Why?" "Because I can't afford to make another mistake," she said, her voice breaking. "I have 2 children depending on me. I can't risk this job. I can't risk stability. Even for—" She stopped, shook her head. "Even for this," I finished for her. "I'm sorry," she said. "Don't be." I squeezed her hand once, then let go. I understand. Your children come first. They should come first. I managed to smile. But Lizzie, when you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'll be here. As your friend, at minimum. And if someday there's room for more, well, I'm patient. Emma's visit came faster than I expected. I'd cleaned my apartment obsessively. Bought groceries for meals I wasn't sure I could cook. Made a list of activities, then thrown it away, remembering Lizzie's words about just being present. When I picked Emma up from the airport, my hands were shaking worse than Lizzie's had been in that first interview. But then she walked through the arrival gate, and she looked so much older than the last time I'd seen her, and when I said, "Hi, sweetheart," she dropped her bag and hugged me. Really hugged me. And I held my daughter and cried right there in the terminal, and didn't care who saw. "I missed you, Dad," she said into my shoulder. "I missed you too," I managed. "So much." That first day was awkward. We were both trying too hard, too aware of all the lost years between us. But then Emma found Sophie's drawing on my fridge. I'd put it there the day I got it, and she asked about it. So I told her. About Lizzie. About the job. About the Meridian Project and Wednesday morning coffees, and how sometimes people come into your life and remind you what matters. "You like her," Emma said. It wasn't a question. "I do," I admitted. "But it's complicated." "Because she works for you?" "That's part of it." Emma studied the drawing carefully. "She has kids. 2. Michael and Sophie. Good kids. Smart. Kind. Do they know?" Emma asked. "About how you feel?" "No. And neither does Lizzie." "Well, I corrected myself, she knows I care. But I told her I wouldn't push. That her job is safe, her stability is safe. That I can just be her friend." Emma looked at me with an expression far too wise for 16. "And you're okay with that?" "I have to be," I said. "She has to protect her children. I understand that now. I should have protected you better." "Dad." "No, it's true. I put work first. I put my own comfort first. And I lost years with you because of it." I met her eyes. "But I'm trying to learn. Lizzie's teaching me, even if she doesn't know it." Emma was quiet for a long moment. Then, "I want to meet her." "What?" "If she's important to you, I want to meet her. And her kids." Emma's voice was firm. "I want to see who changed my dad's life." I called Lizzie that night, after Emma had gone to bed. "I know this is a lot to ask," I said, "but Emma wants to meet you. And Michael and Sophie." There was silence on the other end. Then, "James, I don't think that's a good idea." I know it's crossing lines. But she was very specific. She said, "If you're important to me, she wants to know you." More silence. "We could do something casual," I continued. "The park maybe. The kids could play. We could just talk. As friends. Nothing that implies." "It's not about what it implies," Lizzie said softly. "It's about what it is. James, if I meet your daughter, if our children meet, that's not nothing. That's not casual." "I know. And I told you I can't." "I know," I said again. "And I respect that. But Lizzie, Emma's only here for a week." And she asked. Not because she wants to make things complicated, but because she's trying to understand her father. To understand what my life is like here. "Please." I heard her sigh. Heard the struggle in it. "Saturday," she finally said. "The park near the office. 2 o'clock. "But James." "I know. Just friends. I promise." That's not what I was going to say. She paused. I was going to say, "Bring a frisbee." Michael loves frisbee. Saturday was one of those perfect spring days. Warm sun, gentle breeze, the kind of day that makes you believe in new beginnings. Emma and I got to the park first. She was nervous, I could tell, picking at her nail polish the way she'd done since she was little. "What if they don't like me?" she asked. "They'll like you," I assured her. "What if I say something stupid? Then you'll be human. Just like the rest of us." Lizzie arrived right at 2, and I watched Emma's face carefully as Lizzie and the kids approached. "She's pretty," Emma whispered. "She is," I agreed. But it wasn't Lizzie's appearance that made her beautiful to me. It was the way she held Sophie's hand. The way she'd made sure Michael's shoelaces were tied. The way her whole face lit up when she saw us. "James," she said warmly. Then to Emma, "You must be Emma. I've heard wonderful things about you." Emma blushed. "Really? Your father talks about you all the time," Lizzie said, and it was such a generous lie. I'd only recently started talking about Emma at all, but the way Emma's face brightened made me love Lizzie even more for it. Sophie, with her characteristic directness, looked up at Emma and said, "You're really tall. I wish I was tall." Emma laughed. I wished I was shorter when I was your age. I was always the tallest girl in class. Really? Sophie's eyes went wide. And just like that, the ice was broken. Michael and Emma discovered a mutual love of graphic novels. Sophie insisted on showing Emma the playground equipment her mom helped build. Lizzie and I sat on a park bench, watching them, not quite touching but close enough that I could smell her shampoo, something floral and simple. She's lovely, Lizzie said softly. Emma, you can see you in her. The way she thinks before she speaks. The kindness in her eyes. She got all the good parts, I said. And none of my stubbornness. I don't know about that. She came all the way here to meet her father. That takes a different kind of stubbornness. Lizzie smiled. The brave kind. We fell into comfortable silence. On the playground, Sophie was teaching Emma some elaborate hand-clapping game. Michael was reading something on his phone, but looking up every few seconds to make sure his sister wasn't getting into trouble. They're protective of each other, I observed. They have to be, Lizzie said. It's been just us for so long. They learned early to look out for each other. You've done an amazing job with them. Some days I'm not so sure. She sighed. Michael's starting to ask questions about his father. Why he left. Whether it was because of him. God, Lizzie. I know. I tell him it wasn't his fault. That his father's choices had nothing to do with him. But how do you make a 12-year-old believe that? How do you convince him he's worthy of staying for when the first man he ever trusted proved he wasn't? I didn't have an answer. Just reached over and took her hand, and this time she didn't pull away. You stay, I said quietly. Every single day. You show him what real love looks like. What real commitment looks like. That's how. Her fingers tightened around mine. Sometimes I get so tired, she whispered. Of being strong. Of being everything they need. Of pretending I don't want. She stopped, shook her head. What? I asked gently. What do you want? She looked at me then, and her eyes were full of longing and fear and something that made my heart race. This, she said. Moments like this. Where someone else carries some of the weight. Where I don't have to be the only adult. Where maybe. She took a shaky breath. Where maybe someone sees me. Not just as a mother or an employee. But as a woman. As Lizzie. I see you, I said. I've seen you from the beginning. I know. A tear slipped down her cheek. That's what scares me. Emma found us like that, holding hands on the bench, Lizzie wiping tears from her face. I started to pull away, but Emma said, Don't let go because of me. We looked up at her, this wise, serious girl who'd somehow grown up while I wasn't paying attention. Sophie told me about her dad, Emma said, sitting down on the bench next to Lizzie. About how he left. Emma, I started. And it made me think about us, Dad. About how you were there, but not really there. How I was so angry about that. She looked at her hands. But you didn't leave. You were just lost. And now you're trying to find your way back. I am, I said. Emma turned to Lizzie. He talks about you, you know. Not just to me. I called his office on Thursday to ask him something. And his assistant Sarah? She went on and on about you. About how you changed the office. How everyone loves you. How Dad is different now. Lizzie's eyes widened. She said that? She did. And then she said, Emma paused, smiled slightly. She said it's about time someone reminded him that life is more than conference calls and quarterly reports. Sarah talks too much, I muttered, but I was smiling. I like her, Emma said. Then more seriously. And I like you, Lizzie. I can see why Dad does. Emma, Lizzie started. I'm not trying to make this weird, Emma said quickly. I wanted you to know that I'm not some obstacle. If you and Dad if there's something. She was blushing now, stumbling over words. I just mean I'm okay with it. Whatever it is. Lizzie was crying again, and she pulled Emma into a hug. Thank you, she whispered. You have no idea how much that means. Over Lizzie's shoulder, Emma caught my eye and winked. My daughter. Trying to fix her father's love life. The irony wasn't lost on me. That evening, after we'd all gotten pizza together and the kids had played until they were exhausted, after Lizzie had taken Michael and Sophie home and Emma and I were back at my apartment, my daughter looked at me seriously. You love her, she said. I could have denied it. Could have said it was too soon, too complicated, too something. But I'd promised myself honesty with Emma. Real honesty. Yes, I said simply. I do. Does she love you? I don't know. Maybe. But she's scared, and she has every right to be. Because of her ex. That's part of it. But more because she has 2 kids depending on her. She can't afford to take risks. She can't afford to trust the wrong person again. Emma was quiet, processing. Then, do you understand why that makes me angry? I blinked, surprised. What? Her ex Michael and Sophie's father. He had everything. A family. Kids who needed him. A woman who loved him. And he just walked away. Her voice was thick with emotion. While you wanted to be there for me. You just didn't know how. You made mistakes, but you didn't abandon me. Emma, I'm not done, she said, and I heard my own stubbornness in her voice. You spent years beating yourself up for not being a perfect father, for working too much, for missing things. But Dad, you were there when it mattered. You paid for my school. You called every week even when I gave you one-word answers. You never stopped trying. That's a pretty low bar, I said quietly. Maybe, but it's more than some kids get. More than Michael and Sophie got from their dad. She wiped her eyes. So yeah, I was angry at you. For a long time. But watching you with Lizzie today, with her kids, I saw something. What? I saw you being the father you always wanted to be. Just with someone else's children. She smiled through her tears. And instead of making me jealous, it made me happy. Because I realized you weren't a bad father. You were just a father who needed to learn. And now you're learning. I pulled her into a hug, this girl who'd grown into someone so much wiser than I'd ever been. I love you, I said. And I'm sorry for all the years I didn't show it well enough. I love you too, Dad. And I forgive you. I think I've been ready to forgive you for a while. I just didn't know how to say it. The next morning, I drove Emma to the airport. Will you come back? I asked. This summer, maybe? I could take actual time off. We could do a road trip or something. I'd like that, Emma said. And Dad? Yeah. Don't let her go. Lizzie. I know it's complicated, but life is complicated. That's not a reason to give up on something good. What if she's not ready? Then you wait. But you don't give up. You show her, the way you're showing me, that you're serious. That you're there. That you're not going anywhere. I hugged my daughter goodbye, watched her walk through security, and felt something settle in my chest. A sense of purpose. Of clarity. Emma was right. I couldn't control whether Lizzie would ever be ready to take a chance on us. But I could control whether I was worth taking a chance on. I could be the man she deserved. The man her children deserved. Patient. Present. Steady. I could prove day by day that I wasn't going anywhere. The weeks after Emma's visit fell into a rhythm. Wednesday morning coffees continued. But we started having lunch sometimes too. Not in fancy restaurants. Lizzie didn't like those. We'd grab sandwiches and eat in the park, talking about everything and nothing. I started leaving work at 6, like David had noticed. Sometimes earlier. I called Emma twice a week. Really talked to her. Made plans for summer. And I watched Lizzie. Not in a creepy way, but in the way you watch something precious. Something you want to understand. I watched how she interacted with the junior staff, always encouraging, never condescending. How she remembered birthdays and asked about sick relatives. How she stayed late not because she had to, but because someone needed help. I watched how she talked about her children. The pride in her voice when Michael got an A on that algebra test. The tenderness when she mentioned Sophie's fear of thunderstorms. I watched how she moved through the world with a quiet grace that came from surviving hard things. And I fell more in love with her every day. But I didn't push. Didn't pressure. I just showed up. Steady. Reliable. There. One Wednesday, about a month after Emma's visit, Lizzie came into my office and closed the door. I need to talk to you, she said, and my heart dropped because her face was serious. Of course. Sit down. She did, but perched on the edge of the chair like she might need to run. I've been offered another job, she said. The words hit like a physical blow. Oh, I managed. It's with Meridian. They were so happy with the community outreach work that they want to bring me on full-time. To do similar projects across their whole organization. She wasn't looking at me. It's more money. Better benefits. A real title, not just junior level. That's wonderful, Lizzie. You deserve it. Do I? She finally met my eyes. Or am I running away? Running away from what? From this. She gestured between us. From how I feel. From how complicated it is to work for someone who... She stopped, took a breath. Someone I care about. Someone who makes it hard to think straight. My heart was racing. What are you saying? I'm saying I don't know what to do, she whispered. The smart thing would be to take the job. To remove the complication. To have clear boundaries between work and everything else. Then take it, I said, even though it killed me. Lizzie, if that's what you need. But I don't want to, she interrupted. I don't want to leave. I don't want to work somewhere else. I don't want to, her voice broke. I don't want to leave you. I stood up, came around the desk, knelt down in front of her chair, so we were eye level. Then don't, I said simply. But how can I work for you when She couldn't finish the sentence. When you what? I asked gently. When I love you, she whispered. The world stopped. You love me? I breathed. Yes, she said, tears streaming now. And I've been fighting it for months because it's messy and complicated, and I have children to think about and a job I can't afford to lose and... I kissed her. Soft, gentle, full of all the feelings I'd been holding back. When we pulled apart, she was crying harder, but smiling too. I love you too, I said. And yes, it's messy. And yes, it's complicated. But Lizzie, we can figure it out. We'll do it right. Transparent with HR. Clear boundaries at work. Whatever you need to feel safe. What if it doesn't work? She asked. What if we try and it falls apart, and then I lose everything? What if we try and it does work? I countered. What if we're careful and honest, and we build something real? She searched my face. Your daughter loves you. Told me I'd be an idiot to let you go. That got a watery laugh. She did. She did. And Lizzie, I know you need to protect Michael and Sophie. I would never ask you to risk their security. So here's what I'm proposing. I took her hands. Keep your job here. Same title, same responsibilities. But let's talk to David and HR tomorrow. Make it official that we're involved. That way there's no secret, no pressure, no power imbalance hanging over you. And if people talk, let them. We're both adults. We're both doing our jobs well. As long as we're professional at work, which I know we will be, it's no one's business. She was quiet for a long moment. And the kids? We go slow, I said. We don't rush them into anything. We let them set the pace. But Lizzie, they already like me. And Emma already loves you. Maybe this isn't as complicated as we're making it. Or maybe it's more complicated, she said. But worth it anyway. So is that a yes? I asked. You're staying? I'm staying, she said. And then softer. I'm staying with you. We told David and HR the next day. David, to his credit, didn't look surprised. About time, he said. You two have been dancing around this for months. HR was more concerned with protocols. We signed documents acknowledging the relationship. Agreed that Lizzie would report to David for performance reviews to avoid any conflicts of interest. Made it all official and above board. Feel better? I asked Lizzie as we left the HR office. Actually, yes, she said. Like we're not hiding. Like we're doing this the right way. We are, I assured her. Every step. Telling the kids was harder. We decided to do it separately first. Me with Emma on a video call, Lizzie with Michael and Sophie in person. Emma screamed with joy and made me promise to invite Lizzie and the kids to visit that summer. Michael and Sophie's reaction was more complicated. Is he going to be our new dad? Sophie asked, according to Lizzie. No, Lizzie had told her honestly. You have a father, even if he's not in your life. James is someone I care about. Someone I'm going to spend time with. Someone who cares about me, and about you guys too. What if he leaves like Dad did? Michael had asked, his voice hard. And Lizzie, bless her, had been honest. I don't think he will. But I can't promise that, Michael. People are complicated. All I can promise is that I'll always be here. No matter what. Does he know we come first? Michael had pressed. He does. He insisted on it. That, Lizzie told me later, was when Michael's expression had softened slightly. Okay, he'd said. But I'm watching him. Fair enough, I'd said when she'd relayed the conversation. I'd expect nothing less. Our first official date was almost laughably simple. Dinner at a quiet Italian restaurant. Nothing fancy but nice. We sat across from each other and talked like we always did. About work, about the kids, about books and movies and dreams for the future. But it was different now. Because I could reach across the table and hold her hand. Because when she smiled, I could tell her she was beautiful. Because at the end of the night, I could kiss her goodnight without feeling like I was crossing a line. This is strange, she said, laughing against my lips. Strange how? Strange good. Strange like. I've wanted this for so long, but convinced myself it couldn't happen. And now it is happening, and my brain doesn't quite believe it. Believe it, I said. I'm here. I'm real. And I'm not going anywhere. We took it slow with the kids. Weekend outings, all 5 of us. Parks and museums and movie theaters. Casual, low pressure, letting them get used to the new dynamic. Emma came to visit in July, and watching her with Michael and Sophie was something I hadn't expected. She was so good with them, patient with Sophie's chatter, genuinely interested in Michael's video games. One evening, while the younger kids were watching a movie, I found Emma and Lizzie sitting on the back porch, talking quietly. "She's amazing," Emma said later. "I can see why you love her." "Yeah," I said. "Yeah. And Dad? She makes you happy. Like really happy. I haven't seen you smile this much in, ever maybe." "She does make me happy," I admitted. "Then don't screw it up," Emma said with a grin. "I'll try not to." But of course, it wasn't all smooth sailing. Michael tested me constantly. Small challenges, little moments where he'd push to see if I'd snap or leave or prove I was just like his father. Like the time he accidentally knocked over my coffee onto my laptop. Or when he was rude during dinner and waited to see if I'd yell. Or when he told me flat out that I wasn't his dad and never would be. "You're right," I'd said calmly to that last one. "I'm not your dad. And I'm not trying to be. But I care about your mom, and I care about you and Sophie. And I'm going to keep showing up, even when it's hard. Even when you're angry. Because that's what people who love each other do." He'd stared at me for a long moment, then walked away. But the next week, when we were all playing frisbee in the park, he threw it to me instead of past me. A small thing. But it mattered. Sophie was easier, but in some ways harder. She wanted to love me immediately, fully, completely. Wanted to call me Dad, and have me fix all the holes her father had left. "You have to be gentle with her," Lizzie warned. "She's so desperate for a father figure. But if this doesn't work out..." "It's going to work out," I said firmly. "You can't know that. I can know that I'm committed. That I'm in this for the long haul. That I'm not her father, but I can be someone stable and safe and there." And I tried to be. I went to Sophie's school play. Helped Michael with his homework. Showed up for soccer games and dance recitals, and all the small moments that make up a childhood. The moments I'd missed with Emma. The moments I was determined not to miss now. 6 months into our relationship, Lizzie and I were having coffee one Wednesday morning. Some habits were too good to break, when she said something that stopped me cold. "Michael asked me last night if you were going to marry me." I nearly choked on my coffee. "What did you tell him?" I told him I didn't know. That we were taking things one day at a time. She looked at me over the rim of her mug. "But James, what's the answer? Are we? Do you want to?" I asked carefully. "I don't know," she said honestly. "Part of me does. Part of me is terrified. My first marriage failed so spectacularly. What if I'm not good at this? What if your first marriage failed because you married someone who wasn't ready to be a partner or a parent?" I interrupted gently. "That wasn't your failure, Lizzie. That was his. But how do I know this is different?" "Because I'm here," I said simply. "Because when things are hard, I don't leave. Because I've had 6 months of Michael testing me and Sophie overwhelming me and juggling work and kids and us. And I'm still here. Still showing up. Still choosing this." She was quiet for a long moment. "I love you," she finally said. "So much it scares me." "I love you too," I said. "And I understand scared. But Lizzie, I'm 52 years old. I've spent most of my life building a company and missing what matters. I don't want to waste any more time. I want to marry you. I want to be there for your kids. I want to build a life with you. You're proposing? Here? In the office break room?" I laughed. "God, no. When I propose, if you want me to propose, it'll be somewhere more romantic than this." "So this is a pre-proposal?" "This is me being honest about what I want. But only if you want it too. Only if you're ready." She reached across the table and took my hand. "Ask me in 6 months," she said. 6 more months of this. Of normal life and hard days in real life. If we're still this happy, this solid, then ask me." "Deal," I said. And I marked the calendar in my mind, January 24th, 2026. 6 months from now. The day I'd ask Lizzie Carter to marry me. Those 6 months were everything. Hard and beautiful and real. There was the time Sophie got sick and Lizzie had to miss work, and I covered her meetings without thinking twice. There was Michael's basketball game where I cheered so loud Lizzie had to shush me. There was Thanksgiving with Emma flying in, and all 5 of us crowded around my dining table, laughing and talking and feeling like family. There was the night Michael had a nightmare about his father and came to find his mom, only to find us together on the couch, and instead of being upset, he'd crawled between us and fell asleep there, like he finally felt safe. There was Christmas morning with more presents than we needed and Sophie's laughter and Michael's rare smile and Lizzie's hand in mine. There were fights, too. about parenting decisions and money, and whose turn it was to drive to soccer practice. Normal couple stuff. But we worked through it, talked it through, never walked away. And through it all, I watched Lizzie bloom. She got a promotion, a real one, that she'd earned. Became a senior consultant. Started mentoring the junior staff. Smiled more. Laughed more. Let herself be happy. You know what I realized? She told me one night as we were cleaning up after dinner. What's that? I spent so many years convinced I'd used up my chances. That I'd made my choice when I stayed with my mother. That career success and love and happiness were for other people. People who'd made better choices. She turned to face me. But you didn't see it that way. You saw someone worth taking a chance on. And it made me start seeing myself that way too. You were always worth it, I said. I just reminded you. January 24th, 2026. I'd planned it carefully. Emma was visiting. I'd told her the plan and she'd been delighted, immediately offering to distract Michael and Sophie. We were all going ice skating. Something simple and fun. And afterward, in the park we'd first all met in, I was going to ask. I'd bought the ring 3 months ago. Nothing flashy. Lizzie wouldn't want that. Just a simple band with a small diamond. Elegant. Classic. Like her. The skating went perfectly. Sophie fell approximately 40 times and laughed each time. Michael pretended he was too cool to enjoy himself, but couldn't quite hide his smile. Emma and Lizzie chatted like old friends while they helped Sophie back up for the 41st time. And then we were in the park, the winter sun setting in shades of pink and gold. Emma, why don't you and Michael and Sophie go get hot chocolate? I suggested, probably too obviously. Emma grinned. Great idea. Come on, guys. Sophie started to protest, but Emma took her hand. Trust me. You want to give them a minute. Michael looked at me, then at his mother, then back at me. And then, miracle of miracles, he smiled. Actually smiled. Come on, Sophie. Let's go. And suddenly it was just Lizzie and me. You're very unsubtle, she said, but she was smiling. I know. I took her hands. Lizzie. Wait, she interrupted. Before you, whatever you're about to do, I need to say something. My heart was pounding. Okay. 6 months ago, you told me you wanted to marry me. Asked me to give you 6 more months to prove we could make this work. She took a shaky breath. And you did. You showed up every day. You were patient with my kids. You were honest and kind and steady and everything I didn't know I needed. Lizzie. I'm not done, she said, laughing through tears. You made me believe in second chances. In love that's real and lasting and built on friendship and respect. You made me believe I was worth choosing. And I love you for that. So yes. I haven't asked yet, I pointed out. Then ask, she said. I got down on one knee, right there in the park where Sophie had once given me a drawing labeled family. Elizabeth Carter, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. Will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life showing up for you? For Michael and Sophie? For us? Yes, she said, pulling me up and kissing me. Yes, yes, yes. I slipped the ring on her finger and held her close, and over her shoulder I saw our kids, because they were ours now, all 3 of them, watching from the hot chocolate stand, Emma and Sophie jumping up and down, Michael trying to look cool but grinning anyway. We got married that summer. Not a big wedding, neither of us wanted that. Just close friends and family in the same park where I'd proposed. Emma was Lizzie's maid of honor. Sophie was the flower girl. Michael, after much consideration, agreed to be my best man. You're really sticking around? He'd asked when I asked him. I really am, I'd promised. Even when things get hard? Especially then. He'd studied me for a long moment. Then, okay, I'll do it. David officiated, making jokes about how he'd known all along this would happen. And when Lizzie walked toward me, not down an aisle, just across the grass, I saw not just the woman I loved, but the life we'd built together. Hard-won and real, and more beautiful than anything I could have planned. Our vows were simple. I promised to show up. To listen. To be present. She promised to trust. To be brave. To believe in us. And we both promised to put the kids first. To be partners. To build something lasting. Life wasn't perfect after that. Michael still had hard days where he pulled away. Sophie still struggled with the fear that I might leave. Emma and I still had to work to bridge years of distance. But we worked at it. Together. I cut back my hours at work. Made it to every soccer game and dance recital and parent-teacher conference. Started coaching Michael's basketball team. Taught Sophie to ride a bike. Lizzie kept blooming in her career, eventually starting her own consulting firm focused on community development. And I was her biggest cheerleader, just as she was mine. We bought a house together. One with enough bedrooms for everyone and a backyard where Sophie could play, where Michael could shoot hoops, where Emma could visit and feel at home. We had Sunday dinners, movie nights, homework battles, teenage drama, all the normal, messy, beautiful parts of family life. And through it all, Lizzie and I held on to those Wednesday morning coffees. Our one constant. Our reminder that this all started with two people who'd both made mistakes, both needed second chances, and both had been brave enough to try. 5 years later, I stood in another park, different city, Emma's college town, watching my daughter graduate. Lizzie was beside me, holding my hand. Michael, now 17 and heading to college himself next year, was on my other side. Sophie, 13 and beautiful and bold, was taking pictures with a camera I'd given her for her birthday. "You did it," Lizzie whispered. "You got your daughter back." "We did it," I corrected. "You taught me how." After the ceremony, Emma found us in the crowd. She hugged me first, then Lizzie, then her siblings, because that's what they were now, in all the ways that mattered. "I'm so proud of you," I told Emma. "I'm proud of you too, Dad," she said. "For not giving up. For finding your way back to me. For finding Lizzie and Michael and Sophie. For building this family. Best thing I ever did," I said. "Besides having you." That night, at the celebration dinner, Sophie stood up and clinked her glass. "I have something to say," she announced. "Sophie," Lizzie started, but Sophie shook her head. "No, Mom, I want to say this." She took a deep breath, suddenly looking nervous. "When I was little, I used to wonder why my dad didn't want us. I thought maybe we weren't good enough. Maybe I wasn't good enough." My heart clenched. Lizzie's hand tightened in mine. "But then James came along," Sophie continued, her voice getting stronger. "And he chose us. Not because he had to. Not because we were his blood. But because he wanted to. And he kept choosing us every single day." She looked at me now, her eyes bright with tears. "You showed me that family isn't just about who shares your DNA. It's about who shows up. Who stays. Who loves you even when you're difficult or scared or messy." She paused. "So I know my biological father didn't want us. But I don't care anymore. Because I got something better. I got someone who chose me." I couldn't speak. Could barely breathe. "So thank you," Sophie said. "For choosing us. For choosing Mom. For being the dad I needed, even if we don't call you that." Michael stood up then. "Actually," he said, his voice gruff with emotion, "I've been thinking about that." Everyone turned to look at him. "I've been calling you James for 5 years, Michael continued, looking at me. "Because I didn't want to replace my father. Because I was angry and hurt, and I needed to keep that distance." He swallowed hard. "But the thing is, you are my father. In every way that counts. You've been there for every basketball game, every bad grade, every time I screwed up. You've taught me what it means to be a man. What it means to commit. What it means to love people even when it's hard." He was crying now, not bothering to hide it. "So if it's okay with you, I'd like to start calling you Dad." I was out of my seat before I consciously decided to move, pulling Michael into a hug. This boy, this young man, who'd tested me and pushed me and finally let me in. "It's more than okay," I managed. "It's everything." Sophie crashed into us too, and then Lizzie was there, and Emma, all of us holding each other and crying and laughing in the middle of this fancy restaurant while other diners smiled or looked away. This was my family. Not the one I'd been born into. Not the one I'd created through biology alone. But the one I'd chosen. The one that had chosen me back. Built from broken pieces and second chances, and the courage to try again. That night, after we'd taken Emma back to her dorm and Michael and Sophie had fallen asleep in the hotel room, Lizzie and I sat on the balcony, looking out at the city lights. "Do you remember the day we met?" she asked softly. "Of course. You walked into my office with your hands shaking and your head held high." "I was so scared," she admitted. It had been 6 months of rejection. 6 months of being told I was too old, too out of practice, too risky. I almost didn't come to that interview. "What made you?" "Sophie." She'd drawn me a picture that morning. Of me in an office, sitting at a desk, smiling. And she'd written, "You can do it, Mommy," across the top. Lizzie's voice was thick with emotion. I couldn't let her down. Even if I failed, I had to try. "I'm glad you did," I said. "Me too." She leaned her head on my shoulder. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you'd chosen one of those other candidates? Someone younger, with no employment gap, no complications?" "Sometimes," I admitted. "And I thank God I didn't." "Why did you choose me?" she asked. "Really? Was it just kindness? Pity?" "No." I turned to face her. "It was your eyes. I know that sounds ridiculous, but it's true. Everyone else who came through that door looked at me like I was their ticket to something. A paycheck. A career move. But you looked at me like I was a person who could make a choice that would change your life. And it made me want to be worthy of that. To be the person who made the right choice." She was crying again. Happy tears this time. "You changed my life too," I continued. "I was so lost before you. Successful on paper, but empty inside. Going through the motions. I'd convinced myself that was enough, that work and money and building an empire, that was what mattered. And now I know better. I gestured toward the hotel room where our children slept. This matters. Love matters. Showing up matters. Being present for the people who need you. That's what actually counts. We almost didn't make it here, Lizzie said. So many times I almost walked away because I was scared. But you didn't. Neither did you. Even when Michael was horrible to you. Even when Sophie was overwhelming. Even when it would have been easier to date someone without kids, without complications. It wouldn't have been better though, I said. Easier isn't always better. She kissed me then, soft and sweet and full of 5 years of love and trust, and choosing each other every single day. I have something to tell you, she said when we pulled apart. My heart skipped. What? I'm pregnant. The world stopped. Started again. Kept spinning, but everything was different. What? I breathed. I know we're not young. I know it's unexpected. I know. I kissed her. Deeply. Completely. Pouring 5 years of love and hope and joy into it. We're having a baby? I said when we finally broke apart. We're having a baby, she confirmed, laughing and crying at the same time. Are you happy? Scared? I'm terrified, honestly. I'm 47 years old, James. This is perfect, I interrupted. This is perfect. Unexpected and surprising and absolutely perfect. The kids don't know yet. How far along are you? 3 months. I wanted to wait until we were past the risky period. She put my hand on her stomach, still flat but holding our future. I wanted to tell you here. With Emma graduating, with Michael finally calling you Dad, it felt like the right moment. It is, I said. It's exactly the right moment. We sat there in the quiet night, holding each other, thinking about the impossible, beautiful journey that had brought us here. From a job interview to a family. From loneliness to love. From 2 people with broken pasts to 2 people building a future together. The baby came on a Tuesday morning. A girl. Perfect and tiny and screaming with healthy lungs. We named her Grace. For the grace we'd been given. The second chances. The undeserved blessings. Emma flew in from college to meet her sister. Michael held her with surprising tenderness for a 17-year-old boy who pretended to be tough. Sophie refused to put her down, already the protective big sister. She's so small, Sophie whispered, looking at Grace with wonder. You were that small once, Lizzie said. Was I really? You were. And Michael too. And Emma. And she's really our sister? Sophie asked. Like really, really? Really, really, I confirmed. Just like Michael is really your brother. Just like Emma is. Family isn't about blood alone. It's about love. Michael looked up at me then. But she is your blood, he said quietly. Yours and Mom's. Does that make her more? I understood what he was asking. What he was afraid of. Come here, I said. Michael handed Grace to Lizzie, and came to stand beside me. I put my hand on his shoulder. You want to know if I'll love her more because she's biologically mine? I asked directly. Yeah, he admitted. I won't, I said simply. I can't explain exactly how I know that, but I do. Grace is mine because I'll raise her, just like you're mine because I've been raising you. Just like Sophie and Emma are mine. Love isn't a finite resource, Michael. It doesn't run out. It multiplies. You promise? His voice was small, vulnerable. The voice of the 12-year-old boy who'd been abandoned by his father. I promise, I said firmly. You're my son. That doesn't change because I have a daughter who shares my DNA. It just means our family got bigger. He nodded, blinking back tears. Okay, I believe you. Grace's first birthday party was chaos. The house was full of people, David and his new girlfriend, Sarah from the office, the Meridian team, Mrs. Patterson and the community center folks, Emma and her college friends, Michael's girlfriend, Sophie's entire soccer team. Our small family had grown into something bigger. Something that spilled out into the world. Lizzie found me in the kitchen, escaping the noise for a moment. You okay? She asked. More than okay, I said. Just taking it all in. She wrapped her arms around me from behind, and we stood there watching through the doorway as Grace took wobbly steps, encouraged by Sophie and Michael. As Emma laughed at something David said. As our house, our home, overflowed with love and life and noise. Do you remember what you said to me? Lizzie asked. That first day I brought Michael and Sophie to the office? Which part? You said I was worth the risk. You were. You are. But James, you were the risk. You were the one who took a chance on someone everyone else had given up on. You were the one who saw potential where others saw liability. You were the one who changed everything. I turned to face her. We changed everything. Together. Together, she agreed. Grace chose that moment to fall down, and instead of crying, she laughed. Pure joy at trying, at falling, at getting back up. That's going to be her superpower, I said. Resilience. Just like her mother. Just like her whole family, Lizzie corrected. We've all fallen. We've all gotten back up. I'm 57 years old now. Michael just finished his sophomore year of college, studying social work because he wants to help kids like he was, kids who need someone to believe in them. Sophie is 18, starting college in the fall, planning to be a teacher. She still has Sophie's drawing, the one labeled family, framed in her dorm room. Emma is 26, engaged to a good man who reminds me of myself at that age. Ambitious but learning. Driven but present. At her engagement party, she pulled me aside and thanked me for showing her what a good relationship looks like. And Grace. Grace is 5 now, starting kindergarten, fearless and kind, and already asking questions about why some kids have different families than others. Already understanding, even at 5, that love comes in many forms. Lizzie and I have been married for 10 years. A decade of choosing each other, of building a life, of transforming from 2 wounded people into partners, parents, a team. Her consulting firm is thriving. My company is doing well. But more importantly, we leave work at work. We have Sunday dinners. We take vacations. We show up for school events and soccer games and dance recitals. We live the life I didn't know I was missing. Last week, a young woman came to my office for a job interview. She was nervous. Capable, I could tell, but her resume had a 2-year gap. She'd been caring for a sick parent. I saw David glance at me as she explained. Saw him smile slightly because he knew exactly what I was thinking. The position is junior level, I told her. You'd be starting over, essentially. I understand, she said. I'm just grateful for the chance. And I heard Lizzie's voice from 8 years ago. Saw her trembling hands and steady voice and quiet dignity. When can you start? I asked. The woman blinked. What? The job. When can you start? Monday. I can start Monday. Perfect. Sarah will get you set up with HR. I stood, extended my hand. Welcome to the team. After she left, David came into my office. Another Lizzie? He asked. Maybe, I said. Or maybe just someone who deserves a second chance. You're a softie, David said, but he was smiling. I learned from the best, I replied. That night at dinner, I told Lizzie about the interview. You hired her? She asked. I did. Even with the employment gap. Because of it. Because I know what it means to sacrifice for someone you love. Because I know that doesn't make you weak, it makes you strong. Lizzie reached across the table and took my hand. Around us, our children talked and laughed and argued over the last dinner roll. Normal family chaos. Do you ever regret it? She asked quietly. Taking a chance on me? Not once, I said. You were the best decision I ever made. Even though I came with complications? Especially because of that. The complications became my life. My family. My everything. Grace climbed into my lap then, sticky hands from dessert and all. Daddy, will you read me a story before bed? Of course, sweetheart. The one about the princess? Again? I pretended to groan, and she giggled. Yes. Again. So after dinner, I read Grace her favorite story. The one she'd heard 100 times, but never got tired of. And as I read, with my daughter in my lap and my wife beside me and my other children nearby, I thought about fairy tales. How they usually end with happily ever after. But real life isn't like that. Real life is choosing each other, day after day. Showing up when it's hard. Forgiving mistakes. Building something slowly, carefully, with patience and love. Real life is messy and imperfect, and sometimes painful. But it's also beautiful. And as I looked around at my family, this impossible, complicated, perfect family, I realized something. Maybe we didn't get a fairy tale ending. We got something better. We got real. No one would hire her, until one man took the risk. But it wasn't just about a job. It was about seeing value where others saw liability. About believing in second chances. About understanding that the people who've been broken and put themselves back together, those are the strongest people of all. It was about a woman who'd lost everything and found the courage to try again. And a man who'd had everything but didn't know he'd lost himself until she helped him find his way back. It was about children who taught adults what really matters. About love that isn't perfect but is real. About families built not just by blood but by choice. By showing up. By staying. By being brave enough to risk your heart one more time. Because sometimes the person everyone else gave up on is exactly the person who will change your life. Sometimes taking a risk on someone else is really about taking a risk on yourself. On the possibility that you can be better. Do better. Love better. And sometimes, just sometimes, that risk becomes the greatest gift you've ever received. Thank you for listening to this story. Remember, it's never too late to start again. It's never too late to choose love. It's never too late to build the life you were meant to live. Take the risk. Show up. Stay. The best things in life are worth the wait.